You're listening to Whispers of War.
Hello everyone and welcome to Whispers of War, show number 29. I'm your host Sil. Let's start with what we always start with. How was my week in World of Warcraft? And with 8.1.5 coming out, I've been so busy. Again, like every week, I want to play more, but I can't because of life, I guess. But every time I had a moment, I crammed in some World of Warcraft time. And there's just so much to do. I feel like I'm not going to say I don't understand how people can say I'm bored, I don't know what to do. I'm sure that there are reasons why they don't have anything to do. I just keep on being busy. I don't know why I even try to play other MMOs. Because I just don't have the time for it. Not with everything that's happening in World of Warcraft. I am still going to, I make some time available to play these other games. Just because I think it's good to have a little bit of a change now and again. Because you don't want to get burnout. That's one of the worst things you could do. So I just did everything I wanted to do this week in World of Warcraft. And I'm still, so on my main alliance character, my druid, I still need to finish the zone. I thought I was going to finish. It's not Terragard Sound, is it? Oh no, it is. It is Terragard Sound, I think it is. Or Stormsong Valley, one of the two. It's the one that doesn't have the windmills and the nice, it's where your main capital is as Alliance, that one. So I'm still there because it's a little bit like Zuldazar. You run into that area and you think, well, I think I'm about done now because, surely there can't be any more quests popping up. I've done everything now. And you hand in what you think is your final quest and all of a sudden 10 others pop up somewhere all over the place, or you get sent to like this remote little corner of the map and you're like, really? Okay. So I'm still not finished there, but I like the questing. I like the story. I love seeing it now on the Alliance side, what's going on there. I do see some things that are very similar in both areas. So you can see like the political backstabbing. That seems to be like a big thing in both stories. I found that interesting. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose just to give players a bit of a sense of, well, it's the same kind of story. We're not missing out too much if we only play Horde or if we only play Alliance, or if that's just a coincidence or just something that needs to be done for whatever is going on. I don't know. But yeah, I saw similarities with that. So 8.1.5 dropped. And, unlocking lots of things. And that keeps me busy. But the zones was still something I wanted to do in between. So I did. But of course I had to finish things on my Horde Rogue. Which is my main, really. And so I finished more of the war campaign, some stuff unlocked, but I don't think I'm there completely. I feel like I need to do a lot more. So I don't know. I think I'm missing something, but it might have to do with going into LFR and maybe finishing up some things there, because I still need to apparently defeat Jaina for one of the quests. I have a suspicion once I've done that, the war campaign might actually progress, but I'm not entirely sure. I might just be missing something. Anyhow, so I've done that. Then I had to unlock the Zandalari, of course, because, it's all about the Zandalari trolls. And I liked the story. I liked that there was unrest with her going to ascend to the seat of the Zandalari. And I think doing all of that, and then okay, spoiler. I guess it's going to be a spoiler. I will have to say that now, so don't listen for like 2 or 3 minutes. When you have to do all the trials for the Loa, I really had a good time. I thought it was really, really funny. I think the one with Gonk was a bit like, right, okay, that's just click, 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 done. I think the one with Paku, I think that bugged out because I was already at the top of the stairs and I immediately ran forward. And you're supposed to try and go up the stairs while you're being blown away. Yeah, I was already there, so that was over in like a second. I think that bugged out. The one with Bonsandi, that's interesting how he says he wants the head of Sylvanas because he wants a war chief in his collection. And I'm like, well, you did kind of have like Vol'jin, but alright. So he doesn't have Vol'jin anymore, what you saw from the other stories, which makes you wonder what happens. But what I really liked was when Bonsandi basically dismisses you and you go to speak to your people, you actually see Vol'jin on the side waving at you and bowing, and then he disappears. So that's interesting to me. That's very interesting that they put him in there, and I don't know if anyone has seen that, but if you do, you might want to pay close attention to that, or see if you can find a YouTube video or something. But yeah, I found that very interesting. Anyhow, so that's enough for spoilers. I love the Zandalari druids. I think their forms are absolutely fucking amazing. The Moonkin form, I'm not going to lie, the running is a bit odd, but you know, who runs in Moonkin form anyway? You run in Raptor form, right? Your travel form. Yeah, it's a nice change, I think, from all the stags and mooses that we've seen. So I'm happy with that. I do want to unlock the Colteran ones because I think they look pretty badass. The only thing I don't like with that one, again, is the Moonkin form. I think they look a bit weird, but I guess you can always have Glyph of Stars. So that's probably what I'm going to use for my Zandalari Druid as well, just because it's a bit odd. Yeah. So that's so far 8.1.5, so lots of stuff to be done. But I enjoyed it. I did the whole thing with Magni and getting that extra stuff unlocked on your Heart of Azure. I don't even really pay attention to that. I'm just like, oh, it's a quest that popped up, let's do it. The one quest I found really, really, really fun and cute, but that's also because I read the books Before the Storm. If you've read that and you're wondering what happened to the goblin and the gnome in that, you will get a quest. So I'm not going to say what happens because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's quite, I was a bit like, oh, that's so lovely. And you see, well, let's just say you see feathers again. The little mechanical parrot. So you see feathers, and I like that. And yeah, that's really it. That's all I can say for 8.1.5 so far. I've seen a lot of Zandalari trolls run by. I've seen a lot of Colteran humans run by. My guild seems very enthusiastic about the Colteran humans, so I'm happy for them. I try to create them. I mean, you can create them, but you can't make them, if that makes sense. I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm really that taken aback by them. Maybe it's something I will have to grow into. But another thing that people have heard me talk a lot about was how I always bitched about how I wanted 50 characters on one server. So now this is where you hear the Hallelujah song. Yeah, we got that with this patch, and I have a slight problem now because I started to transfer all my characters to my main server, which is Argent Dawn. And my wallet is dying, even though Blizzard has now given, you know, lots of discounts. I mean, well, I say lots of discount. I would have preferred a 50% discount instead of 30, but I'll take anything at this point in time. So I've already transferred a few characters over because, you know, I deserve it. Why not? So I did that. Those are long-standing alliance characters that I've had, and I do like playing them now and again. I just didn't play them anymore because they were on a different server. And well, it's difficult saying it's well worth the transfer costs, isn't it? But I'm happy that they're all on one server now. I also immediately started to create some of the allied races I did not make before because I just simply didn't have the room. And I like seeing the little intro movies. It actually gets you really into the atmosphere quite well, and I still want to level all of them the old-fashioned way, just because you get, the heirloom gear. Why not go for it? Might be another thing to keep you busy, right? And everyone is doing so much with leveling now, and my only fear at this point in time is that if I move all my characters over, I'll be at about... I think I'll have about 35 or 38 characters on one server, which is fine, because I don't really have any on any other servers, except for my very first character, the very first character I rolled. I still have that one. She's on like oh god, what was the server called? I think it was Dragonblight, but I'm not entirely sure. And I have one horde on my very old RP PvP server, but it's now just an RP server. I'm just a little bit afraid if we get more allied races that we're going to run out of character slots again. I know this sounds really stupid, with 50 character slots, but you see how many allied races Blizzard is rolling out, so why wouldn't we have any more coming in the future? And are they going to up that amount then from 50 to something else, or are they actually going to force you then to start deleting things? So I know those are, first world problems, but it's very, I don't know. It just made me wonder. I thought, well, surely at a certain point, that's going to stop with all the allied races we're getting or having. I don't know if they plan on giving us many more, but I have a feeling they will. So yeah, just a little bit of pondering there, but I like it. I'm really loving the game at the moment. There's so much to do, and oh god. Okay, I'm going to guide you now for a very, very dumb moment. So this also refers a little bit back to other games at this point in time. So everyone knows that I've had issues with my computer, and I swapped graphics card about a year ago. Not because my previous one was really bad, but I thought something was wrong. It wasn't. My graphics card has always been fine. It's been my fan, my CPU fan, that has been a bit of a ball ache. So that was replaced several months ago, and I then basically borrowed, he says stolen, I say borrowed, my boyfriend's monitor, because he had a bigger monitor, and I thought, well, you're not using your computer, so I might as well just borrow it for now. And I plugged it in, but he has, I think it's just DVI or HDMI, I don't know. It was different than mine, and so my main monitor just have the old-fashioned connector. So I plugged that into my graphics card, and it was all fine. But the other monitor I had to connect to my motherboard, which is a weird thing, because I thought, well, yeah, surely I'm never going to get my graphics that way, but I don't see any other things to put them in. There's nothing there. We're talking about like 6 months later now, right? Or not even 6, no, I'm talking about a year later now. I watched a YouTube video because I'm starting to get so pissed off with the fact that I can't see certain games on this monitor properly because it doesn't want to play it. And I was having issues with, well, why is it picking up the onboard graphics card instead of my own? I don't get what's going on, and I started to get more and more pissed off. Little did I realize this was my own dumbass, because I watched a video that said, okay, so how can you make sure that your games are both playing on both monitors on this graphics card? And I see someone having the exact same graphics card as mine, and I see all these little slots on the top of this graphics card. I'm like, I don't have these slots. What the fuck? So I grabbed my phone, because my computer is a little bit difficult angled, like in a dark corner at the back. So I look at it and I go like, are you fucking shitting me? I'm sorry for all the swearing, but this is really like one of those moments. So all the little plugs at the back are covered up with this black cap, basically, that you have to pull out to see the openings for all your plugs. And I was like, you You fuckers. If I would have known that, I could have plugged it in. So I grabbed his cable, plugged it in, and lo and behold, everything can be played on the highest settings. Everything looks crisp. I have no more issues anymore with games like Elder Scrolls or Final Fantasy not recognizing my card, because I've just plugged in all my monitors in the graphics card instead of, you know, my onboard graphics card from the CPU, and I could have fucking killed myself. I was like, are you kidding me? I could have solved this like ages ago, but yeah, that was my incredibly thick moment. I am so happy now though that I can play everything at the highest settings and it's just working as I want it to work. I guess it's something. And then of course the patch rolled out and we all had issues with with our graphics again. I think if you're having issues and you haven't solved it yet, try changing your DirectX, because I had to switch from, I think it was 12 to 11. Did go to the legacy, I just went to 11. Did that for a few days until the patch rolled out again, like the hotfix. But maybe if you're having issues, always check the DirectX settings and which onboard graphics card it's using, if it's your designated one or the one that's on your motherboard or something. That's all the technical stuff I have for you. I'm by no means, as you can clearly tell, I'm not an expert. But yeah, I just figured that out. So luckily everything seemed to be working perfectly now in game again. So yeah, I think they hotfixed some things, but I saw that people were having issues. In my guild they were just having like black screens, and that is never fun. So yeah, I have lots to do. I plan on finishing my zones on my druid, unlock all the races, do all the dungeons and the raids. Yes, I promise I will do it. I want to do it. I just don't know on which one. I think I have to do it on both, because it will unlock more stories on both sides, and then I think it will continue the war campaigns. I'm going to level all my allied races for their heritage gear, and I'm also going to level the races that I don't have yet, because I still want to, once we get our heritage gear for, like, for instance, Tauren or something like that, I do want to have those. And I don't have a Tauren anymore on my server, so that's a little bit like, what the fuck? But I don't want to race change, if I'm honest. I just want to start from scratch, because I'm already moving so many characters on the Alliance side. I also need to find some pyramid scheme or something to make lots of money to be able to transfer all these characters. Maybe I need to sell a kidney or something. I hear that works. But yeah, I'm having a good time, and I think that's really important. I'm enjoying my time in World of Warcraft. I'm just not going to look at my bank account at the end of the month. So that's really it. Other than that, there's lots of story to be had in the game, and someone who was really good about talking about the lore was Sharkyboi, who I interviewed this week, so you can listen to that interview now, and I will see you on the flip side. So with me today, I'm being joined by a completely new voice, and someone who has a really nice voice, actually, I have to say. Welcome, Sharkyboi.
Thank you.
So, Sharkyboi, tell the people who you are, what you do.
So my full internet name is known as Kai Sharkyboi. I'm a voice actor, a podcast producer, a streamer dreamer, and also a big Warcraft fan.
I like that streamer dreamer. That's really nice.
Yeah, streamer dreamer. Although I have kind of been taking a break from streaming since my computer is acting a little bit weird lately.
Oh no!
Yeah,
we never like computer issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. It's just like, well, it's kind of like a 2-year-old like gaming laptop or something, and I don't know. I might consider maybe getting myself like a proper gaming desktop in the future. You know, just to kind of like have something with a little bit more horsepower.
I had to switch from my gaming laptop to a proper desktop many years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's just, you know, it's laptops. They get so hot, and it was like a plane was taking off constantly. So I think at a certain point, I'm happy with the desktop.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes my laptop does that too. Well, not as bad as like some of the more like cheaper ones, but like, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be like a point where you ever heard of something called self-destruct mode?
No, but it sounds very like
Yeah, it's a little weird. So what it is that this is kind of like a really stupid thing for like American tech companies to do. It's a little bit of a sneaky thing where apparently they make a computer program and then at a certain mark, I believe it's at like a 2-year mark or something, it'll start to do like little glitches and it starts to like go slightly off. And the thing is that they can't figure out what to do, so they're kind of like being pushed to buy like a brand new computer because of it. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a sneaky thing. I mean, not every single computer company does this, but there have been some people that, you know, kind of try to kind of like, you know, be a little sneaky with like, I don't know, a new update or something just to make it slightly worse, just so that way to push people to like buy a new thing, you know? So,
yeah, that's really sneaky.
It is, yeah. But it's not the worst thing in the world, you know. It's just you just gotta watch out for certain brands. That's all.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least that people are a little bit aware of that. I have never heard of that, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
You said something about voiceover work. Well, are you happy to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about it. So here's a very interesting factoid. So I was actually born with a certain learning disability called LLD, also known as language learning disability. And for 13 years, I actually went to speech therapy in order to learn how to talk like this, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And during that time, I had this amazing talent of like, you know, presenting, like, I just had like a really good voice and everything. And it had a like very distinct style. And for many years, people have been kind of telling me, oh, you should be on television or radio or whatever, just to like, you know, do all this. And many years later, I went to a convention out in Milwaukee. It was a My Little Pony convention of all places. And I went to my first ever voice acting panel, and I was kind of like, wow, these guys get to like do this for a living. Mm-hmm. I want to do something like that. So I kind of started this journey of just like, you know, trying different things and getting roles, and also just like, you know, trying to be like my own personal businessman in order to like really put myself out there. And even recently, I actually just started my own podcast just so that way I can learn how to be more comfortable in front of a microphone and everything, and just sound a little bit more natural.
That's really cool. So tell me about your podcast.
So the new podcast is called Lore Club, and what we talk about is certain lore moments within World of Warcraft. There's only like 2 episodes on there, which is episode 0, which is the introduction. Mm-hmm. But I'm currently, as this recording, I just finished part 1. I'm actually done editing the script for part 2, and then there's going to be a part 3. And what this is that it's all about Sylvanas Windrunner and also the psychology behind her decision making and everything. So, it's a very interesting thing. And I even kind of came up with a very interesting theory, which I might go into a little bit later. But here's the thing: like, you remember like the Broken Shore, right? The assault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
in short, my theory basically states that it wasn't the Loa that Vol'jin saw, but instead it was a hallucination from the infection from the wound. So it was disease that caused Sylvanas to rise, not. Yeah.
That is a very interesting theory. I like that. I definitely need to listen to whatever you're talking about with Sylvanas on the podcast, because I love things like that. That's really, really good.
Oh, yeah. And I actually just read the book Before the Storm about a couple months back. So it's kind of interesting to kind of like take a look into the mind of what I like to call it unethical war chief.
Well, we can talk more about the lore in a bit. So sure. Let's jump to the World of Warcraft side of things. So what people want to know is, what do you play, and is it Horde or Alliance?
So I'm currently like bi-factional, although I have kind of started to give more respect towards the Horde as of late, but the Alliance will always still have like a special place in my heart for my gameplay and everything. And recently I kind of like, just been like experimenting with more the Horde and stuff like that. And some of my other buddies like Frasley or like this from Lagging Balls are actually kind of like on the Horde side. So I kind of figured, okay, I'm just gonna just use my level boost that I have like sitting around and just doing like a Pandoran Rogue, and I've actually kind of fell in love with it. But I'll still kind of like play my Alliance Mage, whose name is Magic T. Who's an elf mage. There's actually a funny story behind that, which I might get into a bit later. But yeah, but I'm mostly just kind of like an Alliance player, and just kind of like building up an army a little bit on both sides. It's probably going to get so big to a point that I would have to dedicate like 1 day a week just for playing all the alts just to get everything done.
Well, Blizzard hasn't made it easier with the fact that you now can have like 50.
Oh yeah. I've heard about that. Oh man, it's starting to become really big. Like, Jeebus, it's becoming too big.
I know those problems. So what flavor do you play?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
What flavor do you play, like class?
Oh, class. So I mostly main a mage. I actually kind of originally when I first started playing out, I was more like a paladin and stuff like that. But when I got back into it, when Legion came out, I kind of decided to maybe just like stick more towards rogue, and then eventually I actually switched over to mage. And the one thing I really like about mages is that you can transport to any city that you want, and like, you don't have to like pay for like any like flight masters or anything to get there. I feel like it's kind of a little bit broken, the fact that you can just like teleport anywhere and you don't have to like pay anything. It feels like I'm like getting away with like highway robbery or something. It just in like flight costs alone.
Especially now with the whole portal stuff that's going on. So
oh yeah, I actually just recently saw that. It's actually really beautiful.
I think it's really nice too, but I think for a mage it's just like, oh, whatever.
It's fine. But let me tell you, that new room, it looks nice. It looks really nice. Yeah.
I've only seen it on the Horde side, and I'm pretty impressed with it. I have not seen it on the Alliance side yet.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it on the Horde side either, but I'm willing to like take a look at it whenever I get the chance. So
I think let's do a switcheroo around and just see what it's like.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So how did it all start for you? How did you start, getting into the World of Warcraft?
So getting into the World of Warcraft, that's a very interesting story. Actually, it's kind of funny because it's very similar to what Nixium kind of experienced, which if you don't know, he's like a famous World of Warcraft YouTuber. He's with Planet Dolan and everything. And I remember visiting a friend's house when I was in middle school. And my friend's brother kind of say, hey, come on over to the basement. I want to show you something. And they have like a nice furnished basement back then. And I went down there with my friend, and he was showing me this thing called World of Warcraft down in the basement. This was like back in the vanilla days. And he kind of said, hey, how about you make a character and just try it out? I was like, all right. And I made like a Tauren shaman, I believe was the very first character I ever crafted. And I just kind of fell in love with like the whole landscape of Mulgore and everything. Yeah. And even after all these years, Mulgore still looks beautiful. Like, I just kind of like saw that and I was like, wow, it looks so pretty. And since then I wanted to get like a computer and play the game. And I also shared an account with my younger brother. I still remember the first two characters that we made. Do you want to know the name of the first character? It's like the stupidest thing that you'll ever hear. The name of my very first character I made to max level is known as Diamond Head. I was supposed to be Diamond Head, but I misspelled diamond, so it's like Diamond Head. And it's just like a Jedi Paladin. Oh my god. It was like the most like ridiculous thing. But my brother's character was a dwarf hunter named Axe Splitter at one point. And I know it, but come on, we were teenagers. We thought certain things were cool, and it's like, yeah, Axe Splitter and Diamond Head. But nowadays it's like I could kind of laugh at it. Sadly,
I think we all have stories like that. That our first character, you're like, I have no idea. I'll just come up with this. I've seen many names running by that you're like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, do you remember your first character you ever made? Just wanted to ask.
I do. I made a druid, a night elf druid, and I was lost for names. And my then boyfriend, he was very much into D&D, and he had once created I think it was a tiefling called Oranel, and that's the name I've just always taken. That is basically like the name I always take on any server now.
Oh man, Ornell sounds like a very lovely name. I wish I could have come up with something like that when I was 14.
Well, that's what you get when you're a dirty role player, you know. You start to just look for names because you can't run around with like something called Underpants as your name. It has to be.
No. Yeah, but I do want to tell you a quick story about like how I got my current character's name actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I got back into the World of Warcraft, which was Legion, I kind of took a very long break because the last computer I had went kaput. Mm-hmm. Basically what happened was that I kind of was trying to think of new characters or something, and I worked at a tea shop at the time, and I kind of came up with this parody character called Night Tea, who was like, it was a night elf rogue, but it was kind of like Batman, only she's like obsessed with tea or something. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I would come out of stealth and I would be like, I'm Night Tea, like just kind of come on out like Batman. And it was so funny. And I kind of realized that not a lot of other characters have T at the end of the name. So a lot of my characters, I just kind of ended with T, and you know, it just kind of went on from there. And so I have like Night Tea, I have Magic Tea, I have Tiny Holy Tea, which is like a gnome priest for some reason. I believe my Pandoran rogue, who's on the Horde side, I named her Floofy Tea. That's possibly one of my favorites.
I really always like that when people actually use like the beginning or the end of the names that they use and just
on that.
I really, really like that. I tried to do that, but I just can't do it with my characters. They all have to have really unique names. But I always love seeing it because it really does make it like your character.
Oh yeah, and also like, you know, if anyone out there is like trying to figure out names for characters, just kind of go whatever you feel like. Even if you like find out on like on a table or something, like, oh, my character's name is Coffee Wallet, like just kind of like Coffee Wallet, just kind of like see like what works, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Just not on a roleplay server because people will have you.
Oh yeah. The mighty Coffee Wallet.
Exactly. Right, talking about, you know, World of Warcraft and everything that's going on, and especially already we slightly skimmed over the topic of lore, but that was going to be your topic for today. So why did you want to talk about lore?
Well, I think lore kind of like really enhances the experience of like playing World of Warcraft. I mean, granted, there are some players that kind of like, oh, they don't read the text and they just want to, you know, get the quest and go, and that's fine. But I really think it's kind of a very neat experience if you wanted to know why you're going on this quest. Why did War Chief Thrall tell you to go to Deemhold to get his hammer? Why all this stuff is just like happening, or kind of like, why are the orcs attacking Bendhelm or something like that? Like, I just think it's just kind of neat just to like take a little bit more of a deeper look into it. So, do
you think that the lore is this is like a little bit confusing at times for people, and I think that's why it's good that Classic is coming out again. You know, with Cataclysm, a lot of the story that was vanilla has completely been shifted. So getting into the lore for people who are brand new is sometimes a little bit difficult. What would you say to people who want to know more about the lore? What's the best thing they can do?
Well, one of the best things that if you're really interested in the lore, there are these novels that Blizzard Entertainment actually released that goes deeper into the story. And they're actually written by Christy Golden, who I believe is the current like story editor for the game, I think. She's written all these novels, which is Lord of the Clans, which talks about Thrall's upbringing of the Horde. I believe she did Arthas. She did Before the Storm. She did like a lot of great Warcraft novels, and granted they're only like fixed in certain points at time, but if you want to know more about like what's happening in between each expansion, it's definitely a really great way how to kind of like catch up with the story and everything, and also just to like take a little bit more insight into It's basically just like what is happening with the world and how it got there in the first place. Yeah.
How do you feel like the lore has progressed from, let's say, vanilla to where we are now?
Well, I think kind of like what's interesting about like from the beginning of like World of Warcraft, like vanilla, what seems to be very interesting is that in the very beginning, it's very kind of like a traditional fantasy story. You know, you have like the orcs and you have the humans, you have like undead, you have like all this other stuff. And, you know, it seems like a pretty traditional, fantasy game when you take a look at it from a distance. But as time went on with these new expansions, suddenly it started to become a little bit more rich in its own universe. Like when Burning Crusade comes out, for example, it kind of give it a little bit more of a sci-fi tone to it with like Outland and kind of like these weird alien worlds and stuff like that, and all this other science stuff that's going on. And another example would probably be Mist and Pandaria, where they take more of an Asian approach to fantasy and kind of give it like almost like a different setting and how it kind of molded. So I think it's just kind of neat, the fact that, you know, this like traditional fantasy story suddenly starts to expand into like other countries and stuff like that, or other cultures, what I meant to say. Kind of transforms it into something that's like almost completely new, actually. And I commend Blizzard for that. You know, I'm very proud of them for like, you know, reaching out to like different territories in terms of fantasy and everything.
How do you feel the lore is at the moment with this expansion?
For BFA specifically, I think it is kind of like, they have done a really good job like setting up the world and like, you know, giving it detail. One thing I absolutely love about like certain expansions is that the setting, they put so much detail into the setting and like the geographical location and like what the world is like. It's first off, I love Kul Tiras. Kul Tiras is like the most beautiful thing I think I've seen World of Warcraft did so far. It's like, it feels like a real place. It's kind of like, sometimes in Tirasgar Sound, I can actually smell the fresh air a little bit. That's how immersive it kind of feels sometimes. For the Zandalar, I think it's kind of like a very neat idea that they explore a little bit more of an ancient history behind the Troll Empire and everything. And I think just kind of like the way how it looks, and it's kind of like one of those examples of like show, don't tell. Like you could tell by like the giant monuments and like some of the ruins that, you know, this empire has been around for a very long time, but yet it's seen some battle through like some of the nicks on like some of the buildings, or like how it's not shining gold, but kind of like a weird tinted, faded gold that it's been around for so long.
Okay. Do you feel like they ever dropped the ball?
Like in terms of story, NPCs that you're like, okay, that went nowhere, or that character has not been fleshed out enough, or I don't like what they're doing here? So one thing that I don't really like about BFA, specifically in Stormsong Valley, is the way how the story kind of like divulges, because when you enter into Stormsong Valley as an Alliance character, you start in Bedlam, and that's fine. But the thing is that the path kind of diverge in two ways. And if you're only focused on the main story campaign, you go one way and it ends at a certain point. But if you wanted to get the full achievement of Kul Tourist or something to get all the chapters, you have to go this other way that takes forever in order to complete it. And yes, Stormsong is beautiful and, you know, it is very interesting, but the others like optional road in order to like complete all the stuff, it just takes forever. Like I wish it was a little more streamlined. It just takes forever to get all the chapters done there. But other than that, it's not really too bad. I just think they just need to like maybe refine it a little bit. Like maybe just kind of give it like, I don't know, like give it like a much more like clearer idea about like which way we're going and, you know, what's happening here, as opposed to like, you know, just go here, do some stuff, you're done. Go here, do some stuff, you're done. Just kind of make it more streamlined. That's what I just That's just my opinion.
No, I think that's a very good. If that's like the main gripe, really, for the lore in BFA, that's not a bad thing. Do you ever feel like there was one expansion that was quite weak when it came to lore?
That was quite weak. I would probably say that Warlords of Draenor doesn't really have that strong of a story, like in terms of a lore sense. I mean, to be honest, I really kind of like Warlords of Draenor, mostly just for the setting itself. Like, everything is just like, I mean, Shadow Moon Valley is like beautiful and everything, but I felt like the story could have used like a little bit more like what's the proper word for it? Like, it needed to be a little bit more tighter. Like it like a lot of it just seems a bit loosey goosey when it comes to kind of like, oh no, the big void thing is here. We gotta stop the void thing. Like, it feels like the writers were just like improvising all this, like in the writer's room, just kind of like saying, okay, so we have a copy of Varian here, but he's not like the real Varian because this is like a different time thing. Like, it's like, I feel like for this expansion they were running out of ideas. Like, what do we do? Like, quick, just pull out whatever we have and just like use it, just use it now. Like, just kind of like.
Now, you know what? That actually really, really sums it up, I think, really. Because so many people had such high expectations for Warlords with, oh, we're going back and seeing all these, like, legendary names. And then all of a sudden it just falls a little bit flat at times. It's like, okay, yeah, scratch that. Some reason now this person is no longer there anymore. Or, yeah, we'll just kill him off really quickly. I just felt a little bit, like, not thought through. And I think that's just very accurate how you pointed that out.
Yeah, and also whenever you're doing like stories about like time travel and everything, there are so many like contradictories that kind of like, you know, cause a whole like mess of like, you know, consistency whenever you're kind of like writing something like that. Like, take for example the Back to the Future films. The first one was pretty strong because, you know, it's all about like obviously getting back to the future. But when the sequels kind of come out, it kind of became a little bit more of a mess because the second movie went slightly into the future and kind of realized, oh no, we've done something wrong. We got to go back to 1955 to fix it. But when they go back to 1955, they're kind of like a little bit more rigid because they have to kind of like act out everything exactly like it was before. But it just made it felt a little bit more awkward because of it, because because there has to be a certain thing that happens, otherwise the future will become messed up. And I felt like with Warlords of Draenor, it didn't really make too much sense, like in terms of like, you know, like taking Garrosh back in time just to like get this new warlord to come to this new Iron Horde to come up, only to make the same kind of mistakes, and you know, people can see that a mile away, and it's like, I don't know if this story actually works. Like, it just felt kind of awkward. That's just the best way how I could describe it. It felt awkward.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, absolutely. Do you have anything else that you would like to talk about regarding the subject of lore?
I think what's kind of interesting, I'm actually have a little bit of a interesting theory, like I said before, about like the whole like how the demonic infection kind of like caused Sylvanas to rise in power. I think it's what's kind of interesting about like about some of these stories about like certain leaders in Warcraft history, like Jaina or like King Varian or something like that, is that in the world of fiction, it's kind of like an exaggerated reflection off of like human history that we experience now. Like, you know, all over Europe, they have like all these different kings and all these different kinds of like leaders. And in America too, they have all these different leaders and everything. And what's kind of neat is that in the Warcraft lore, it kind of offers like a bit of a reflection of kind of like what we're kind of like going through in terms of like, you know, politics, in terms of war, in terms of like technology is slowly being introduced into the story and everything, like with like Mechatork and everything. So I think it's just kind of interesting just to like kind of like take a look at like not only like what's happening in the big picture, but also take a look at specific characters and how they lead their people to do all these different activities and all that. So So I think that's kind of like a neat little thing. In case you're kind of like interested in getting more into lore, take a look at some of like a little bit of human history too, and you'll see like some similarities in there. As like, huh, so Sylvanas did this. This kind of thing happened in human history too. That's oddly similar. So it's kind of like, yeah, you'll be pretty surprised about like what kind of references you'll find.
That's actually really cool. That's something that you could look for. Anything else that you want to drop down about lore?
I think what's also interesting is that you can find like some really neat Easter eggs in there when you kind of like take a look, not only through like the quest text and everything, but also through like the architecture of like certain buildings, or kind of like the culture that some like races kind of like do. Like for the Zandalari trolls, they're very they basically scream out Aztec, but there's also like some other like say Southeast Asian influences and stuff like that. Like if you take a look at the ships, they had that like certain type of like styling that's like very reminiscent of like Thai culture in terms of like their ship design, but also meshed in with like the dragon longboats from like Scandinavia and everything.
Oh,
it's
cool.
like, yeah, it's like little stuff like that you kind of like take a look back and kind of see, oh, that like you can see like the inspiration behind like a lot of the like the buildings and everything, how Stormwind is like very reminiscent of like say romanticized English fortresses and everything. So that's also just another thing to look out for, not just like the NPCs and stuff, but also take a look at the environment. Take a look like what's around you. That's kind of like, oh, this building looks like this, and like that geographical location, that lake, looks very similar to, say, I don't know, like the loch in Scotland or something. Just like little stuff like that.
Nice. I like that. I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump back to Battle for Azeroth. What are you most impressed with at the moment, and what are you least impressed with?
I think the one thing I'm most impressed with is the way how the war campaign kind of like plays out. The one thing I kind of really like is kind of like one of my favorite subjects in history was always about like World War II or like World War I and stuff like that. And what I think is kind of neat is that with the war campaign, it's very reminiscent of like, say, like all these different places of battle and all these different kind of like factors that go into like, invading into enemy territory and trying to kind of like either sabotage or try to kind of like take down an enemy force that's like blocking their way into achieving victory. So when I first kind of like went into Battle for Azeroth and I see like the war campaign for the first time, it felt kind of a little bit jarring, but then after a while it's kind of like, wow, this is like being on deployment almost, and kind of like seeing like and doing all these like covert operations to like not only like defeat the Horde but also get like other other races on our side, like the what was it called in Vol'dun, those like snake people? I think they're called like the
Sathrak.
Yeah, Sathrak, like the Sathrak who were trying to defend their temple or something. Like, I have a feeling there might be like a future neutral race. I don't know if that's true, but I could see them as like a neutral race just on that alone. And also just kind of like what really kind of like being out on the battlefield really feels like almost kind of like, you're a part of this invading force that's going into like, say, Vol'dun or something like that. But you see the other enemy on the horizon, and you just have to be like, all right, we're gonna have to take them down, but we have like all this desert and everything. Like, how are we gonna take it down? Like little stuff like that. I just love. I that's just like the one thing I'm impressed with. In terms of what I'm not impressed with, I felt like the distribution of like content that Blizzard provided for expansion, it felt a little bit too little. Like they only add in like tiny little expansions, and yeah, that can work, but one of the main reasons why I got like Battle for Azeroth was, well, I want to play as a Kultiran. I want to go out there and I want to be like a swashbuckling pirate or something. But when I started up, I kind of realized that, oh, I can't play it as that yet. Like, I have to wait for like a half a year, and I was like, ugh. Like, just, I had to like go through all this, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll play through the story, but you better have that cult Tyrion. And lo and behold, we finally got it. But boy, it felt like a slog.
How do you feel with the whole fact that they advertise that you can play as these races, but tied to that is all these pre-requirements that you need to do?
Oh, you mean like the reputation grind and everything?
Yeah, for instance.
I kind of felt like a little bit annoyed by it, but then I kind of stop and understand that, like, wait a minute. In the past expansions, like say Cataclysm and Mist of Pandaria, they kind of give you like the races for free regardless. And I kind of think maybe the reason why they put this whole rep grind behind it is maybe they kind of wanted to not make it so easy to pick out like a new race like right away. Like maybe they wanted to like, build up this like they wanted to build up this like army and everything, and I kind of felt like through a story sense they want to like introduce it in like a brand new way, if that kind of makes any sense. After learning about that fact, I kind of realized that, all right, I guess that's fair. We have to like do the thing in order to get what we want. So I think it's okay. I just kind of wish that we would have start at like level 1 or something, just to like get that experience of like getting up to it. But I guess if we have to start at level 20, then we'll just have to start at level 20 then. So, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I felt like it's like fair trade.
Okay, that's good. How do you, or do you have any good tips for the listeners regarding Battle for Azeroth? So that could be something that you've discovered in game, or just something that some people are complaining about burnout. I don't know how they have burnout now with the new patch, but still things like that. One
very neat thing I kind of discovered from some of my other friends, such as Frasley and the others, is that don't be afraid to go back to old content to like finish up some loose ends. Like I know that like for some people they get like burned out from Battle for Azeroth because it's the same thing over and over. If you're looking for something to like maybe spice things up, maybe go back to like say Pandaria or something and get that rep grind to get like a Water Strider or something. Just kind of like build up that collection of like mounts that you always wanted to do, because Battle for Azeroth, it'll still be there. Don't worry. Like, if you feel like burned out and, you just don't want to do anymore, just take a break from it and just, I don't know, just go out and find transmog weapons or something, or do pet battles, or I don't know, just kind of like take a look at the story from a brand new character or something like that. Like, remember, you have options. Like, don't worry, Battle for Azeroth won't go anywhere, and you could always come back to it later.
Exactly. And I think the Water Strider mount, that's just a perfect example, because that thing is a game changer, especially for BFA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I've just been trying to grind that for quite a while, actually. Well, I kind of took a break from Magic Tea for a while, so I think it kind of like I fell a little behind. But I'm almost to that exalted anglers in order to really get that. Like, I'm almost there. It's like, it's so close.
It's really good. My tip for that is, if you are trying to do it, if there is anything like time walking dungeons, save up your commendations, and then once it's Pandaria, hand them in and just do the angler quests, the dailies, because you get so much reputation for that.
Oh yeah. Like I've been doing that and everything. I just haven't had the discipline to like keep doing it, because
I know that feeling.
I've been distracted by like saying, "Ooh, I got to do that world quest," and it just ends up being like 5 hours later. Just like, I finally got it done, but I need to get to bed. Like, it's just, boy, it's just those little things like that. It's just kind of like, you want to get this thing, but then, ooh, look, a shiny, just kind of like distracted you.
Yep. I know that feeling, but at least that is better than being in game going, just jumping around in Ironforge or something. You're like, I'm bored.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely true. Remember, there's always all sorts of stuff you can do in there. Like, don't feel so restricted in one expansion. Just explore all the stuffs.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
What has the Warcraft community meant to you?
The Warcraft community, I think it's kind of like a really I think they're a really nice group of people, you know? Like, I kind of rediscovered podcasts recently, and I remember joining in Discord for the first time, just for following certain artists and stuff like that. And I came across this guy named Frasley. I don't know if you know him, but he has like his own podcast called like the Frasley Report or something. And I kind of joined his Discord just to like see what's going on in there. And, you know, we kind of started talking, and, you know, I kind of told him, oh, I kind of done this. And I think it's just kind of nice that we have like this interest in like not only the game, but also in all this other stuff. And you can meet some really cool people in there. Like, I never, like, before I met Frasley, I didn't know there was like all these people that made all these podcasts about like World of Warcraft or even gaming in general. Like, I thought it was kind of like some sort of weird YouTube show thing or whatever, but no, this right here, the fact that we can communicate each other, not just through voice, but through video and everything else, and, you know, just talk about all sorts of cool stuff that's happening in the game or even outside the game. It's just such a great community just to like have like a common banner to really just enjoy something that we're all passionate about.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
Now, the odd question every time. What is your whisper? So a whisper can be, for those who don't know, it can be a theory crafting, it can be a wish that you might have, something that you would like to see happening in game. So what is yours?
So I think I want to try something a little different. And for the whisper, I would like to give a little piece of advice. Is that all right?
That's perfectly fine.
Always remember, there is always more than one way to zap a troll out of existence.
And why would you say that?
Yes. I've been thinking about that like all morning. Just kind of like, what should I say for this? Is like, there's always more than one way to zap a troll out of existence. And I was like, right there. That's what I gotta say.
Right. That is also going to be my title, I think, for the podcast.
There's more than one way to zap a troll. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. That is absolutely. I can't wait for this to come out, and I just see that on my like morning feed of like the podcast episode. Like, oh, it's featured on a podcast episode. There's more than one way to zap a troll.
Exactly. Okay. Well, Sharkyboi, I love that answer. So if people want to find out more about you, about your podcast and all those other things that you do, like streaming, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Kai Sharkyboi. My portrait is basically this weird pink cat thing with like shark teeth. I know it's kind of a bit of a long story, but you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Twitch at Kai Sharkyboi. And I believe I also still have... Oh, actually, I do have a profile in Casting Call Club. So if you need like a voiceover artist for anything, you can find me there. Again, just look for the pink cat shark thing. So yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on the interview.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was lovely talking to Sharkyboi. But of course, you guys had lots to say about the lore. So let's see what Twitter said to my question. What is your favorite lore story and which is your least favorite? And Kristen said, I love Jaina's story, but I'm afraid that where she is now in battle for Azeroth, we won't see much of her after this expansion. I'd like to see Jaina maybe patch things up with Kalecgos and take up an apprentice again. She's the most powerful mage in Azeroth and can teach an apprentice a lot. I think you're very right. That would be really cool. And I still want to see her pop up an egg if she's with Kalecgos, because why not? Fabri said, my least favorite, this whole expansion, to be perfectly honest. My most liked, Garrus' trial is full of great character moments. Oh, it's such a shame that you're not really enjoying this expansion. I think there's always some expansions that some people really love, others really don't. I guess it's like Marmite, right? So maybe the next expansion will pull you back in, or maybe something that will happen in one of the patches. Who aggroed that said, my favorite was, before they nerfed it in Kata, was the Legend of Stalvan in Duskwood. The sword they gave as the culminating reward was amazing. Alas, it's no longer rewarded. I still like the story of it though. Also the Pamela Redpath story in Eastern Plaguelands is really good. Oh, that's really sad, that one. But it really is good. Minerva said, my favorite? Any story involving the Draenei. I'd also like to see more lore for them going forward. Well, we've seen lots of lore in Legion for them, so it would be interesting to see if they can pull it back now with the Draenei and see what happened there, because, you know, some of the Magar unlocking things was a bit unnerving, I think, to see what happened with the Lightforged. She continues, disliked, that is tough because great storytelling will have moments you hate but add to the broader narrative. Though I will say I grew tired of Thrall's story by Warlords. I think we all grew tired of Thrall's story. But no, I understand what you mean. The Morally Grey podcast said, funny you should ask, I just got to tell my favorite story in last night's recording. The story of how Lai Shen was finally killed by the Tol'vir when he tried to take over the Forge of Origination. And of course you guys need to listen to the Morally Grey podcast to hear some of that. The Crosshair finally said, it was horrific what they did with Nomi. He was our prodigy. We taught him everything and then we saw him to grow up to be a total failure. Yeah, that is actually something I have not thought about. I think you make a fair point there. So, yeah, I have to agree with a lot of you. I have my favorites and I have my least favorites. I think no, I'm not going to lie about it. Everyone knows how I feel about Rathian. I think his story and what they did with him in the beginning was really, really good. So I really like that, but my least favorite has always been a bit of the dragon aspects. And I know that it's very contradicting with saying that I like him and I don't. I think at a certain point, and I think that was mostly Cataclysm's fault, we were, thrown to death with dragons. And I started to care less and less and less about the aspects. That doesn't mean I don't like the dragons. The aspects themselves I thought were quite boring at times. I didn't care much for the story because they seemed so on a different plane anyway than the characters that we have now, like Jaina and even Arthas for that matter. They seemed completely almost removed from the player. So I didn't feel much for them at all. I think the whole Warlords lore thing, I don't even want to think about that, if I'm honest. Timey-wimey things I do not enjoy unless it's in the Keepers of Time kind of scenarios, things like that. The time travel dungeons. I'm okay with those, but the whole expansion being a time travel thing, no, not my thing. Don't like that. So, yeah. Pandaria was interesting. I think Pandaria is more interesting to me now that we have Zandalar, than it was at the time that Pandaria was actually current. So that is actually not too bad to level through now, because I find it, it's nice to just see some things with Zandalar trolls and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I kind of understand this now. So, that's really it for lore. Like I said, I love most stories, but there are a few that I just didn't enjoy. Like Warlocks, like Cataclysm. I think that's mostly it. Did not like that. I'll leave you with a little bit of guilt drama. So, Kylie said, a very long time ago, an officer in the guild got hacked by a gold farmer mid-raid. We were all on TeamSpeak with him, not knowing what was going on. We called the person's name. We called the person names and told me to get off our friend's account. Even the comments "Go fuck Pocahontas" came out. No idea where that came from. Anywho, we watched him Hearthstone out. All we could think of was to raise a ticket and end the raid. Till we noticed the guild bank was emptied and all our items were being sold on the World Chat auction house. Thankfully, in the end, we all got it back. That's really bad. Oh, yeah, just make sure that, you have your authenticators and then try not to get hacked. I don't even know if you can get hacked with authenticators now again. I have no idea. Amanda said, I had a GM that looted the guild bank and swapped servers right before Legion came out. One night we were running old content together as a guild for Chiefs, and the next night he was gone. He didn't say a word to anyone, he just took everything and left. We had a pretty substantial amount of gold, really expensive mats that would have cost you an arm and a leg on the auction house. Really nice armor to help upgrade guildies and get them ready to raid, and a bunch of other stuff. One of our guildmates finally tracked him down and on Vent to ask what the heck his problem was, and he told him that it was his guild bank, so everything in it technically belonged to him, so he could take it if he wanted. He said he needed it to establish himself on a better server. He was a creep. That is so bad. So that sounds like a very nice person to me. I think you probably are better off with not having a guild leader who's clearly such a douche. So yeah, I'm sorry that people had to go through that. That's it for this week. I shall leave you with those 2 guild drama stories. I still have a few more on the list here to mention, but we'll do that in good time. We have a lot of shows to go, so I like to keep them a bit, just for later. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you guys have stories or you want to be a guest or any drama things that you want to send in, you can do that. You can contact me on Twitter at whispers_war of @McMonkeys with a Z if you want to go to my personal one. Email whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com for longer stories, or if you just want to send me something, that's also fine. And you can find the show itself on whispersofwar.podbean.com. Thank you guys so much for listening and downloading the show. It's really appreciated, and I hope you have a lot of fun in 8.1.5. Tell me what you're doing. I really want to know what keeps you busy with this new patch. And hopefully I will hear from you guys next week. Enjoy Azeroth. Bye-bye.